0 seconds. The Clark Comet is 10 kilometers across. It's descending toward the central Mediterranean at approximately 50 kilometers per second. Its kinetic energy is around 390 zettajoules, roughly the same energy class as the impact that ended the Cretaceous period and killed the non-avian dinosaurs. For context, humanity's entire annual global energy consumption is around half a zettajoule. The Clark Comet delivers roughly 780 years of that in a single second. Below it lie Sicily, Malta, Tunisia, and Libya. But those are merely where the sequence begins. The real target is Earth. People have only seconds to see an object crossing the sky with impossible brightness. Then it hits. 1 second later. The Mediterranean explodes. The comet punches through the water column and slams into the seabed at hypervelocity. A roughly 76-kilometer transient cavity opens in the ocean. Seawater in the impact zone flashes to superheated steam. Marine sediments and crust melt, fracture, and vaporize simultaneously. A towering plume of incandescent rock, pulverized seafloor, vaporized seawater, and molten ejecta erupts through the atmosphere and beyond it. Some material is accelerated onto trajectories that will carry it around the entire planet. The sea is thrown outward in every direction. Malta and the nearest coastlines cease to exist in any recognizable form. 5 seconds later. Southern Italy and North Africa ignite. The fireball and extreme thermal environment engulf the inner region instantly. Valletta, the Syracuse coast, southeastern Sicily, and the nearest Tunisian and Libyan coastline enter conditions where the distinction between structures stops mattering. A house, a highway, and a parked car are all simply objects inside an overwhelming energy field. Exposed people die in the near field before any response is possible. The thermal pulse races outward across the surrounding continents. Across Calabria, wider Sicily, Tunisia, and northern Libya, exposed terrain undergoes catastrophic heating. People outdoors suffer massive burn casualties. Dry vegetation ignites, cars, timber, and fuel catch fire. Thousands of separate ignition points appear almost simultaneously. Farther outward, the pulse reaches Naples, central Italy, western Greece, and deeper North Africa with decreasing but still destructive intensity. These regions are burning before the pressure wave has even reached them. 1 minute later, a planetary seismic event tears through the Mediterranean basin. Powerful seismic waves spread outward from the crater. This is not a normal earthquake. Across southern Italy, the closest Balkan regions, and North Africa, entire hillsides fail. Cliffs disintegrate. Mountain roads disappear under landslides. Tunnels and viaducts collapse. Retaining walls and small dams fail locally. Coastal slopes slide into the sea, triggering submarine landslides along unstable margins. Around Naples, roads, rail lines, and hillside settlements are severed by slope failure simultaneously. Hospitals already receiving burn victims are themselves shaken apart. Emergency crews lose bridges, water mains, and roads before they've organized any coherent response. The seismic pulse continues propagating outward, and above it, the impact plume keeps growing. 5 minutes later, Rome, Athens, and Cairo enter the catastrophe. The impact is now physically affecting a huge arc of Europe, North Africa, and the eastern Mediterranean at once. In Rome, thermal fires are spreading through the southern districts, while seismic motion damages utilities and transport infrastructure. The southern sky glows beneath the expanding plume. In Athens, heat, fire, and strong ground motion combine. Fires spread across the urban edge and surrounding hills. Slope failures tear into nearby terrain. In Cairo, the thermal dose is reduced by distance but still extreme enough in exposed areas to cause burns and widespread ignition. Istanbul and the Balkans are receiving seismic waves and atmospheric disturbances, while communications from regions farther south have already started disappearing. At the impact site, the temporary water cavity is collapsing, enormous masses of displaced water rushing back inward, compressing, becoming the engine of the tsunami. Hot ballistic ejecta is simultaneously beginning to fall across the wider Mediterranean. Surviving roofs are punched through. New fires ignite across already burned landscapes. 15 minutes later, the shockwave begins erasing cities and forests. The atmospheric shockwave reaches enormous areas of Italy, Greece, the Balkans, and North Africa. In the stronger blast zone, entire urban districts fail sequentially as the pressure front crosses them. This is not damaged rooftops Ordinary buildings are torn apart or collapse block by block. Industrial halls and warehouses are ripped open and flattened. Bridge spans and elevated roads fail. Transmission corridors come down. Masonry and steel become airborne debris at once. Behind the initial pressure front comes an immense outward wind field that keeps destroying after the pressure jump has passed. Entire forest belts are flattened, trees uprooted, snapped, stripped. Vegetation becoming a continuous blowdown field. Trucks, buses, and cars are rolled or hurled. Burning debris is carried across kilometers. Already burning neighborhoods become rapidly advancing fire fronts. Rome is disappearing behind dust, fire, and collapsing urban districts. Athens is under blast-driven fires. Large stretches of southern European forest are flat. People inside structures that survived the earlier phases hear neighboring buildings collapse before their own structure begins failing. Outdoor survival inside the strongest blast wind corridors becomes essentially impossible. Anyone not sheltered behind heavy reinforced concrete is struck by debris or thrown. 30 minutes later, the blast reaches Paris, Madrid, and Central Europe. The weakening but still massive shockwave crosses southern France, Spain, Central Europe, Egypt, Turkey, and parts of the Western Middle East. In Paris, large glass facades collapse outward. Roofs, street furniture, and debris fill exposed streets. Fires spread through multiple districts, while live communications from southern Europe have already gone dark. In Madrid, thermal ignition and blast winds merge into a massive simultaneous fire and infrastructure collapse. In Berlin and Warsaw, farther from the impact, the pressure front is weaker, but still brings widespread structural damage. Shattered curtain wall facades, transmission corridors down, and transit crippled across the city. Airports discover they have nowhere to divert aircraft. Runways are damaged, airspace is collapsing, and airports without power can't operate. Hospitals move patients away from exterior walls, then lose grid power entirely. 1 hour later, mega tsunamis sweep into the wider Mediterranean. The collapsing crater, displaced sea, and submarine landslides have generated an enormous complex tsunami system. By 1 hour, destructive waves are reaching coastlines already shattered by heat, seismic shock, blast, and extreme wind. The Gulf of Naples, in a burned, ruined coastal region, receives huge surges carrying ships, vehicles, building debris, and fuel tanks inland. The wider Greek coast and Aegean islands are hammered. Crete takes repeated wave trains. North African cities outside the original annihilation zone now receive catastrophic coastal inundation on top of everything that preceded it. In areas with enough warning, survivors climb to cliffs and hills. Elsewhere, organized evacuation is impossible because the earlier blast destroyed roads, communications, and vehicles. Ships torn from moorings become enormous pieces of industrial debris moving through ports at water speed. 3 hours later, the entire Mediterranean basin is in motion. Reflected and refracted tsunami trains move through the basin from multiple directions. Alexandria and the Nile Delta, low coastal districts built barely above sea level, flood catastrophically as waves enter the harbor and spread inland. Wave energy propagates northward through the Adriatic, striking ports and coastal towns repeatedly. Destructive surges reach Marseille, Barcelona, and Spanish Mediterranean ports. A harbor hit by the first wave may be hit again hours later by waves reflected from the opposite coast. Destroyed ports become fields of broken ships, fuel slicks, burning wreckage, and floating debris. Rescue vessels can't enter most harbors because channels are jammed with wreckage and violent currents. Inland governments have stopped trying to address the coast. Every surviving resource is being redirected to power plants, water systems, and food stores. 6 hours later, the sky begins falling around the world. Impact material thrown onto high suborbital trajectories begins re-entering over enormous portions of Earth. The sky fills with incandescent streaks across every continent simultaneously. Atmospheric heating increases far from the Mediterranean. In New York, Sao Paulo, Tokyo, and Sydney, people who had been watching the destruction of Europe realize their own sky is now part of the event. Glowing debris crosses the atmosphere above cities that haven't felt any blast, any shaking, any heat. And suddenly, the abstract disaster on screens becomes something overhead. In the maximum Chicxulub-class scenario, Reentry heating and falling incandescent material help ignite widespread fires across dry landscapes on multiple continents. Aviation is no longer possible. Smoke plumes are beginning to appear around the planet. Firefighters across 3 continents abandon individual structures to defend hospitals, water treatment plants, and power stations. Farmers in Australia and the American interior open barn doors and release livestock rather than leave them trapped inside burning buildings. 12 hours later, vast regions burn. Massive wildfire and urban fire complexes are developing across multiple continents simultaneously. Individual fires merge into enormous complexes across the American West, across the Brazilian Cerrado and Amazon fringe, across the dry interior of Australia, across Central and Southeast Asia. Smoke systems become continental in scale. Electrical grids fail where transmission corridors burn. Industrial facilities, refineries, and fuel storage add toxic smoke to the atmosphere on top of the burning landscape. In Shanghai and Delhi, megacities that felt no blast and no direct thermal pulse are now managing smoke penetration, power failure, and transport collapse at once. In Los Angeles, fires that started from re-entry heating in the dry hills above the city are moving through neighborhoods with nothing to stop them. Fire departments that were already stretched before the impact now have no water pressure and no air support. Sydney's western suburbs disappear behind a smoke wall as grassland fires merge with urban fringe ignitions. People everywhere seal buildings with tape and wet cloth and improvise filtration from whatever is available because the air outside has become dangerous to breathe without protection. The fires are devastating, but what remains suspended above them will kill on a far larger scale. One day later, the sun begins disappearing. Earth is increasingly wrapped in rock dust, soot, sulfur-bearing aerosols, vaporized impact products, salts, chlorine-bearing material from seawater, and smoke from fires burning on every continent. Sunlight reaching the surface drops sharply. At midday, some regions resemble deep twilight. New York's streetlights are on in the middle of the afternoon. London sits under a dim brown sky. North American farmland is receiving almost no useful solar energy. Solar power output collapses, surface heating falls, evaporation decreases. The global hydrological cycle begins breaking down. Plants immediately lose the energy required for normal photosynthesis. Ground zero is no longer the defining survival problem. The atmosphere surrounding every continent is. Governments place grain, fuel, medicine, seed reserves, and water treatment chemicals under armed protection. Factories and schools close as surviving electricity is redirected toward food, water, hospitals, and heating. 3 days later, global infrastructure starts breaking apart. Normal aviation remains largely impossible. Shipping is severely disrupted. Many national grids have broken into isolated surviving sections. Refrigeration chains fail. Fuel distribution collapses. Agricultural machinery is running short of diesel and maintenance components that can no longer be sourced. Food shortages first appear in dense cities that rely on continuous deliveries. Acidic precipitation begins as atmospheric chemistry changes, sulfur and nitrogen compounds producing rain that damages already stressed soils and freshwater systems. Water utilities are rationing treatment chemicals because replacement shipments may never arrive. Hospitals have canceled everything, not immediately life-saving. 1 week later, impact winter takes hold. Temperatures fall dramatically. High latitudes and continental interiors cool especially hard. Unseasonable freezes strike regions that should still be growing crops. Across North America, Europe, Russia, and northern China, fields stop growing. Leaves die. Growing seasons collapse. Surviving forests, already damaged by fire, smoke, and acid rain, are failing under cold and darkness. Industrial livestock operations begin collapsing because feed production has stopped. Farmers harvest anything edible regardless of maturity. Large livestock herds are slaughtered because feeding them through the coming months is impossible. Heating fuel becomes as strategically critical as food. In places where normal fuel delivery has collapsed, people dismantle abandoned buildings for burnable material. 2 weeks later, the biosphere starts collapsing. Multiple extinction mechanisms are now operating together. Photosynthesis has fallen drastically across much of the surface. Agricultural crops die, forests and grasslands lose foliage, plant growth stops across darkened and frozen regions. Acid rain delivers chemical stress to already damaged soils and freshwater ecosystems. Ozone damage from impact chemistry creates additional biological stress whenever the haze thins enough for stronger sunlight to penetrate. In the oceans, phytoplankton productivity collapses across large regions, triggering a cascade. Phytoplankton to zooplankton to fish to seabirds to marine mammals. Large die-offs create locally oxygen-poor waters as organic material decays. Fishing communities find their catches collapsing at the exact moment humanity is most desperate for another food source. Farmers stop trying to save the current growing season entirely and focus only on protecting seed stock for a future season that may still be years away. The mass extinction is no longer a forecast. It is underway. 1 month later, major agricultural regions simultaneously lack useful sunlight, stable temperatures, fertilizer, fuel, functioning machinery, transportation, reliable electricity, and normal markets. The current global harvest is gone. Industrial livestock production has collapsed because feed is unavailable. Wild fisheries cannot replace terrestrial agriculture because marine productivity is also crashing. Food exporting states have stopped exporting. Grain reserves are national security assets. Strict rationing has replaced normal food markets in every country still capable of organizing one. In major cities, calories, antibiotics, clean water, and heating fuel have become more important than anything else. Stored reserves are shrinking while replacement food production is effectively zero. 3 months later, famine becomes the main killer. 3 months after impact, global food reserves are falling rapidly. Import-dependent regions collapse first. Malnutrition weakens entire populations before disease finishes them. Water systems fail as pumps lose power and treatment chemicals are exhausted. Many megacities lose enormous portions of their population through evacuation, starvation, and disease. Governments seize private grain reserves. Cities that can no longer feed millions begin emptying into rural regions. The original impact killed tens of millions in minutes. Famine is now killing on a far larger scale, slowly, across every continent. 6 months later, civilization fails across entire regions. Half a year after impact, many national electric grids have collapsed completely. Surviving areas operate isolated power islands around hydroelectric, nuclear, geothermal, or locally fueled generation. International manufacturing is largely gone. Replacement electronics, pumps, transformers, and machine parts are scarce or unavailable. Many cities cannot support even a fraction of their former populations. Some national governments control only core territories. Large areas operate entirely outside regular communications, fuel distribution, or public services. Communities strip abandoned infrastructure for wire, pumps, motors, bearings, batteries, and filters. Mechanics, agronomists, electricians, and doctors have become the most strategically valuable people in any surviving community. Printed technical manuals are vital where digital infrastructure no longer works. Food-producing land and reliable wells are worth more than former financial centers. 1 year later, Earth is still alive, but the old world is not. The central Mediterranean is dominated by the gigantic impact scar and radically transformed coastlines. The nearest surrounding regions are burned, buried under ejecta and tsunami deposits, chemically altered, stripped of vegetation, and largely devoid of large surface animal life. Cities inside the near-field destruction zone no longer exist as functioning settlements. Agriculture is essentially absent across the worst-hit regions. Surviving human populations exist mainly in isolated inland or underground enclaves. Many cities in North America, Northern Europe, and Asia still have recognizable skylines. That does not mean they function. Large portions of their populations are gone. Food production has collapsed. Some districts are abandoned. Grid electricity survives only in scattered islands. Famine, cold, and disease have killed on a scale far beyond the original impact zone. In the tropics and equatorial interiors, cooling is generally less severe. Some inland ecosystems survive better than temperate ones. Human enclaves with groundwater, protected crops, stored seeds, geothermal or hydroelectric power, and controlled environment agriculture have among the best chances of maintaining organized communities. But they live beneath a damaged atmosphere and a collapsed global economy. They are refugees, not countries. The oceans have suffered major primary productivity losses. Many surface food webs have collapsed. Fish, seabirds, and marine mammals have declined dramatically. But Earth is not biologically sterilized. Life persists in deep ocean ecosystems, hydrothermal vent communities, deep sediments, and subterranean microbial ecosystems. Microbes, fungi, spores, dormant seeds, and burrowing animals are doing better than anything that depends on sunlight and a functioning food chain. In this maximum branch, billions are dead from the combined effects of direct impact destruction, fire, famine, cold, disease, displacement, and infrastructure collapse. Many former megacities are largely abandoned. The pre-impact globalized civilization is gone. Mass extinction is still unfolding. Climate and ecological recovery will require far longer than 1 year. The comet struck one point in the Mediterranean. The real impact site was Earth itself.